Coming up today, the former co-chair of Korea's main opposition party, Ahn Cheol-soo, announces plans to form a new Liberal Party by early February, in time for general elections set for April. The World Bank warns that emerging economies such as Korea are at a crossroads, with many facing the strong likelihood of much slower growth in the coming years. Plus, another Korean national is brutally killed in the Philippines. The latest death brings the total number of Koreans murdered in that country to 11 this year alone. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, you're tuned in to our early afternoon edition of Arirang News. It's Monday, midday on Monday, December 21st here in Seoul, South Korea. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. I'm Mark Broom. And we start with that news that voters here in Korea will have a brand new option on their ballot slips come the general elections in April next year. Former opposition leader Ahn Cheol-soo, who defected from the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy earlier this month, says he plans to have his new party up and ready by early February in time for those elections. Now, during his press conference at the National Assembly earlier today, Ahn said he was recruiting members who will help him form a new opposition force and have specific details worked out before the Lunar New Year holiday. That actually falls on February 8th. He said the new party will engage in politics centred on improving the people's livelihoods, and he envisions winning the 2017 presidential election. Now, Ahn Cheol-soo defected from the NPAD on December 13th when negotiations with the party leader Moon Jae-in over a leadership change fell through. 3 NPAD lawmakers have since followed him out of the party, with the possibility, perhaps, of more to come. Now, the growth of Korea's mortgage market is expected to contract sharply in the coming years. According to local banks on Monday, the target of increase for home loans at most commercial banks has been downsized to around 5%. This year, the banks saw an average 10% rise in housing loans. As part of efforts to curb the country's snowballing household debt, Korean banks will tighten guidelines when screening applicants for loans starting next year. The banks are also focusing on risk management amid uncertainties following the US Federal Reserve's rate hike. Now, given the nature of it, tracking the size of a country's so-called underground or shadow economy is no easy task. The Korean government wants to target business activity that is either unreported or underreported because it costs the nation a fortune in lost tax revenues. For an idea of just how big the underground economy is here in Korea, Oh Soo-young reports.
The size of Korea's underground economy ballooned to an all-time high last year, reaching almost $380 billion. According to a report by the Korea Development Institute, this accounts for roughly 30% of Korea's annual GDP and is more than 10 percentage points higher than the OECD average. The report attributes the vastness of Korea's underground economy to the rising demand for cash, fueled by low-interest policies and growing economic uncertainties. Over the past 4 decades, the undocumented market in Korea has grown more than 560-fold. To crack down on unregulated business activities, the Korean government has been enforcing various measures. These include tax deduction benefits, requiring identification for financial transactions, and issuing cash receipts. These initiatives seem to have worked to a degree. Experts say that without such measures, the scope of Korea's underground market would have reached some $490 billion last year, or roughly 40% of the country's GDP. To bring the shadow economy into the light, experts say more effort should be taken to formalise unregulated activities, such as strengthening cash receipt requirements and issuing electronic transaction bills. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, economists at the World Bank have raised concerns that the slower growth seen in emerging markets since the tail end of the global financial crisis could be part of a longer-term trend. Now, Korea is no exception, with the economy widely expected to only grow in the 2% range next year. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Emerging economies are at a crossroads facing the risk of a slower growth era. That's according to a report by the World Bank. It says the growth rate in 24 emerging countries, including China, Brazil, and South Korea, dropped to the 3% range this year from 7.6% posted 5 years ago. The United Nations has also slashed next year's growth forecast for developing countries by 0.5 percentage points to 4.3%, while leaving that of advanced nations unchanged at 2.2%. From the early 1980s until the global financial crisis in 2008, emerging countries led global growth and posted record growth figures. But their performance in recent years has weakened due to slowing global demand and plunging commodity prices. Many are concerned that Korea is also part of this protracted slump, especially as the Chinese economy is moving to a slower yet safer and more sustainable growth, focusing on domestic consumption over government investment. Bilateral trade with China accounts for a quarter of Korea's total trade.
Slowing growth in China is not a temporary trend. Coupled with tumbling metal and oil prices, the outlook for Korean exports look pretty dim for the foreseeable future.
Given that major private financial institutions expect the economy to expand in the 2% range in 2016, while the government targets 3.1% growth. To do so, the government has pledged to push through structural reforms to improve the business environment and tackle issues like the nation's rapidly aging population. However, many are skeptical about completing such reforms, with general elections set for next year and the presidential election set to take place the year after. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now, the average price of gasoline in the United States has dropped below $2 a gallon for the first time in more than 6 years. According to a news release from GasBuddy.com, the average pump price fell to $1.99 a gallon on Sunday as crude production continues to surge. The figure compares with an average price of $2.44 a year ago. Now, the main reason for the decline has been attributed to overproduction coupled with lower seasonal demand. Crude oil has tumbled approximately 60% compared to June 2014 as global supply continues to outpace demand. Last week, U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate for January delivery fell to its lowest level since February 2009. Industry watchers say oil prices are poised to remain low well into next year. A South Korean resident was shot dead in the Philippines early Sunday local time. No word yet on a motive, but for the first time ever, Korean police will be dispatched to the site to take part in the investigation. Ah Kwon-soa has this report.
Another South Korean national has been shot and killed in the Philippines, raising the number of murder cases involving South Koreans to 11 this year. The Korean embassy said a 57-year-old man, surnamed Cho, who worked in the construction industry, was shot dead by 4 unidentified armed assailants at around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday local time. They reportedly broke into his house in Malvar, a city in the province of Batangas, south of Manila, while he was asleep with his wife and child. According to reports, his wife and child were unharmed. There is no word yet on a possible motive for the murder, but local police are said to be investigating all possibilities ranging from simple robbery to revenge. Along with Filipino law enforcement, South Korean police will also be involved in the investigation for the first time ever in a case abroad. According to the Korea Police Agency on Monday, an investigative team of 3 is expected to be dispatched to Batangas within the next 2 days.
Local police are in charge of crimes that happen in their jurisdiction, but allowing Korean police to take part shows how bilateral cooperation has advanced, as well as how serious crimes targeting Korean residents has become. The Philippine National Police seem to be acknowledging the need for Korea's prowess in scientific investigations.
Violent crimes such as murder and robberies targeting Korean nationals has been on the rise in the country, with 39 Koreans murdered in the Philippines in the past 4 years. Kwon-soa, Arirang News.
Now, no one outside of North Korea knows for sure how advanced the regime's nuclear weapons program is, but comments made by a North Korean professor might offer some insight. In an interview with a local news outlet on Monday, Park Chan-mo, a senior researcher at Pyongyang University of Science and Technology, said he doesn't think North Korea has the capability to equip missiles with nuclear warheads just yet.
We know for sure that North Korea has the capability to build long-range missiles since it successfully launched a satellite. But I believe the country has yet to develop the technology to miniaturize nuclear warheads.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently claimed his country possessed a hydrogen bomb, sparking concerns the reclusive state could have the capacity to develop an H-bomb in the near future. Google has released its top 10 trending search terms of 2015, and the list takes us back to some of the hottest news stories of the year. The public worry about the MERS outbreak saw it top the list here in Korea. Lee Ji-won has more.
Google has released the most popular internet search terms for 2015. In Korea, the most searched word or phrase was Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS. The country was hit by an outbreak earlier this year. It infected 186 people and killed 38 before being brought fully under control in the autumn. Next on the list was Namu Wiki, an online encyclopedia, followed by water park video. The video shocked the nation as an unknown person had recorded women showering at a well-known water park in Korea and uploaded it onto the internet. Japan's top search was the Islamic State group, and its fifth most popular search was Kenji Goto, the Japanese man beheaded by ISIS. Typhoon and rugby were also in Japan's top 5. The top search in the U.S. was Lamar Odom. The former NBA star's drug binge culminated with him being found unconscious in a Nevada brothel. Second and third most searched were the movies Jurassic World and American Sniper. China was excluded as its Great Firewall limits access to Google. Categorizing the top searches globally, Lamar Odom was top, followed by Charlie Hebdo after the terror shootings at its Paris office. The online game Agario rounded out the top 3. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
More than 90 people have been confirmed missing after a landslide hit an industrial park in China on Sunday. Local authorities in the southern city of Shenzhen say the incident buried or toppled 22 buildings. The landslide covered an area of about 20,000 square meters under mud. Around 1,500 rescue workers have been scouring for survivors and pulling people out of the soil. So far, though, the cause of the landslide is unknown, but some reports suggest the soil that became loose had been dug up in the past couple of years in construction work and was piled up nearby. In Europe, Spain is about to undergo some major changes in its political system after the governing Conservatives lost their parliamentary majority in the country's general elections. With nearly all the votes counted now, Spain's ruling Popular Party won the most votes to claim 123 seats in the 350-member lower house of parliament. But it was far below the 176 seats needed for an absolute majority. The main opposition Socialist Party was second with 90 seats. A new anti-austerity party and its allies took 69 seats, while a new centre-right party obtained 40 seats. Corruption scandals and high unemployment seem to have eroded support for the Popular and Socialist Party, which have dominated the country's two-party system for more than 3 decades, in fact. Negotiations to form a coalition government between the parties is expected to follow, which could take days or weeks. Now, in the wake of the Volkswagen diesel emissions scandal, car makers are accelerating efforts to develop eco-friendly electric automobiles. And a team of Korean researchers has successfully developed a key component which can boost the fuel efficiency of green cars. Our Park Se-young has this report.
These electric cars are eco-friendly as they do not produce exhaust. A key component in these cars is a silicon-powered semiconductor device. But switching the material from silicon to silicon carbide increases an electric car's fuel efficiency by over 5%. Only a few countries, including the United States, France, and Japan, were capable of manufacturing the devices using silicon carbide. But now, with 16 years of research, Korean researchers have successfully developed the device. A silicon carbide power semiconductor device's voltage endurance is 10 times that of existing silicon devices of the same thickness. The new device also has a low level of electrical resistance and produces little heat, reducing the need for cooling systems.
Using our technologies like high-temperature ion implantation, we're able to create silicon carbide power semiconductor devices which dramatically reduce power loss.
This technology has been transferred to a local manufacturer to prepare for mass production. The size of the silicon carbide power semiconductor market was over $140 million last year. With a rapid annual growth rate of 37%, the market is forecasted to top $1 billion by 2020. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour, and apologies for the brief technical issue we had with one of our reports earlier in our newscast. We will endeavour to get that fixed in time for our next news bulletin. And for more of the latest, we'd like to remind you that you can also check out our website, arirang.com/news. Until next time, goodbye.